I'm calling to order or reconvening a hearing of public roundtable of the Committee of the Whole of the Council of the District of Columbia. I'm Phil Mendelson, Chair of the Council and Chair of the Committee of the Whole. Today is Wednesday, September 13th, 2023. The time is 2:36 in the afternoon. This hearing is, our roundtable at this point is in person in room 412 of the John A. Wilson Building, and the subject is DC Public Schools Food Services Contracts. This is a reconvening of a hearing. It was recessed on September 6th, which had been a reconvening of a hearing that had been recessed on August 22nd. Looking at the hearing notice, the DC Public School System has promised new contracts to be submitted to the council for food service. The food service contracts have not been competitively bid since 2016, when 2 contracts were awarded to 2 vendors to provide school meals. At least since early 2022, DCPS has sought to competitively rebid the contracts and submit them to the council. We were told they would be submitted to us before July of this year. Then we were told they would be submitted to us on August 17th. At the September 6th recessed hearing, we were not able to ascertain a precise timeline. And so the hearing was recessed, or roundtable was recessed to today to discuss that. Since this is a continuation of a hearing, really the only witness we have is Patrick Ashley. If you would come forward from DC Public School System. He's the Chief of Fiscal Strategy, District of Columbia Public Schools. I'm going to go off of the hearing notice. The hearing notice for today's hearing. The record will close at Wednesday, September 20th at 5 p.m. for this hearing. So let me, I do have some questions. Let me note that I got a letter from you, Mr. Ashley, today, and which has some dates in it. I'm going to go over some questions with you, but I'm going to first ask you about the extensions for the existing contracts through this fall. What is the status of the Sodexo Magic contract? This was passively approved. It's a new contract that was given to us in August, passively approved by the council for food service through September 30th. My understanding is it will be extended through the year. What's the status?
So we are waiting on the Office of Attorney General to give final legal sufficiency on that contract. We expect that to be forthcoming very soon and hope to get that in this week through OPLA over to council.
Is it possible? Can you commit to can you commit to press OPLA to get it to us, let's say on Friday?
As long as we get it back from Office of Attorney General, absolutely.
And are you talking with Attorney General to remind them and press them?
We understand the deadlines, and we talked about the deadline on Monday, and they know that in order to make the 10-day passive approval, that it has to be over to council by next week. So that's our goal, is to be able to get it this week to the council.
Okay, next week makes me nervous.
Understood.
And so Friday makes me more comfortable.
Understood.
And that would be coming to us as an extension that would be passively approved?
Yes, sir.
And basically just an extension of what we already passively approved. So there's nothing new or different there other than the term.
It'd be an extension and then also an increase in the amount, but yes, it'd be a simple extension with an increase in the amount.
The second contract is DC Central Kitchen. Now that did not come to us. That's a new contract through September 30th. That did not come to us for passive approval because DC Central Kitchen has fewer schools. It was under $1 million. If it's being extended through the year, then it will be over $1 million, what we call a tipping contract. And that would require active approval on our part. That's your understanding?
That's my understanding, yes.
And when will we be getting that?
EOM approved it yesterday. OPLA was supposed to submit it, I believe, either last night or they are submitting it today. I spoke with OPLA earlier today, and I know that they were preparing the package. So I don't believe it was submitted yet, but they understand that it has to be noticed and submitted by tomorrow. Excuse me, today, the 13th.
Okay. All right, so then the new contracts, it is the intention that the new contracts would start, I'm going to say January 1st, recognizing that there's this phase in, phase out period, but basically start January 1st. That's the intention.
Correct.
And I'm going to go over schedule questions in a second. What have you told the bidders?
We have communicated with them, as we discussed last hearing, that the bidders that we had been having conversations with, we let them know that their proposed awards had been rescinded. And then on Monday of this week, the respondents to the solicitation received additional communication requesting additional information by noon on noon on September 18th. And that allows us to complete all of the additional information we need from the vendors.
That would be noon of next Monday.
Correct.
September 18th is next Monday. I asked, what have you told the bidders? Because as I said at the last hearing last week, there was quite a bit of anxiety about there not being enough time for whoever gets the new contracts to figure out what schools are at. Well, they would know when they get the award, but to be able to go into the schools, hire people, there's a lot of stuff to set up. And that's when it was explained to me that there'd be this phase in, phase out period, which I think makes sense. But it also means that they didn't know this until we had the hearing. And as you may know, I feel that we're not treating the bidders very fairly by telling them very much information. I recognize the procurement process does have a certain amount of confidentiality around it, but they still need to know things. So that's why I asked the question, what have they been told? So they now know about the phase in, phase out. They now know about September 18th.
They have received that communication in written form. Yes, sir.
Anything else they've been told?
They have not.
Anything else that they might be anxious about that you could tell me, which is a way of telling them right now?
Yeah, we haven't received any additional communication from the vendors that we've sent the inquiries to. So we have not received any formal questions from them.
Have any of them responded to you yet from what you sent out on Monday?
Not that I'm aware of. I believe that today's Wednesday. I imagine they are preparing their information.
And you're confident that what they've been asked is this is the last time they're going to be asked for more information?
I would say that in consultation with the Office of Attorney General, there's always the opportunity that there might need to be additional evaluation. However, we believe that this completes as of what we know now, this completes all the information that we would need.
All right. Part of what's in my mind when I asked the question is that for in the last, I guess, 10 months, the bidders had been asked to submit in December, then January, and things move along, and then suddenly, oops, we want to do a taste test that was added. So there's not likely to be something like that at this point.
We don't expect anything substantial.
Okay, so last week I'd asked these questions. On what date will you solicit new information from the vendors? And not to answer my own question, but I assume that that's
That was September 11th.
And I just asked you, will this be the last request for information from vendors? And the answer is yes, in terms of substance.
Correct. That's our belief at this time.
And what is your deadline or date by when vendors must respond? And that is the 18th.
Noon on the 18th.
When will the final evaluation occur?
The evaluation will begin September 19th, so the day after we receive all of the packages and compile the information. And we expect that we will send all of our documents over to the Office of Attorney General on October 9th, which would mark the end of the evaluation.
So with the evaluation, I assume the evaluation is where you go over the bids and you, among the bidders, you pick who you prefer.
We would update the scoring of the respondents and score them and then make selections based on that scoring.
You don't have a separate deadline for that. You just have the October 9th deadline.
So I think it's all part and parcel to the evaluation in terms of the scoring, in terms of writing up the contracting officer's independent assessment. There's a lot that goes into the evaluation that's more than just putting numbers down on a spreadsheet, but also about documenting why those numbers were chosen, interacting with the contractor to be able to obtain compliance documents so that the full package comes over to the Office of Attorney General. So it's an evaluation. It's also part of the negotiation process with the vendors. But are there specific timelines in there? We haven't further broken that down for the purposes of today's hearing.
And you're clear that can happen in 2 weeks because that's 14 business days.
That's correct.
And that includes the scoring, then making the selection and then documenting the evaluation and then getting all the documents ready for the Attorney General.
So we will get the packages over to the Attorney General. Oftentimes, we will continue to get the last remaining compliance documents while the more narrative documents are being reviewed by the Office of Attorney General. And so there's some additional built-in time there that, for example, if a vendor needs to get a clean hands document and is working with the Office of Tax and Revenue, we wouldn't delay a package for that purpose. We would be able to work that into the process.
So assuming that all documents are in order, what has Attorney General's office told you they will need before finishing their work?
So we have provided this timeline to the Office of Attorney General. They have not committed to a specific date because of the iterative process. We generally, based on past experience in working this through, we believe that this would be a date that would be achievable. As I mentioned at the last hearing, we've been working with the OAG much more closely on this contract and meet with them twice a week. And the turnaround time for these documents has been increased so that we can get this to closure.
What do you mean the turnaround time has been increased?
So Office of Attorney General, has other work besides DCPS. And so, oftentimes we can submit a document and don't necessarily get it back same day or 2-day turnaround. And so with these regular meetings, we're having more conversation, we're having more deadlines and accountability to each other, both from the DCPS side as well as the Office of Attorney General side. And so we're seeing that communication is happening more frequently.
Which is a good thing.
Absolutely.
And so they're aware that you're saying to me that legal sufficiency.
Yes, we've sent this to them several times, and so including this morning.
So they've seen October 31st.
Correct.
And they didn't choke or call you up or say that's not acceptable.
They did not provide any communication to the contrary.
So you're confident that I recognize that you can't, nothing's set in stone, but you're confident that October 31st is reasonable and achievable.
I believe so. I think we all want to bring this to closure. And so we're committed to working together to be able to get through these documents in an expedited fashion.
I know you like the council, but I'm sure you don't want to keep showing up before the council. If I ask you, what are you doing to ensure all documents are in order? Your answer would be, well, you're meeting with the Attorney General's office frequently.
I would say for the Office of Attorney General, absolutely. We do have internal quality control where there's multiple people looking at these documents as well. And so all of the submissions are seen by our Chief Procurement Officer. They're seen by me as well as they go over to the Office of Attorney General. And so this is one of our highest priorities. And so we're treating it as such.
What's your contingency should OAG find a problem?
We would have to work with OAG to understand what the magnitude of that problem is, to understand any sort of delays in timeline. As you'll note, the contract is set to be approved or deemed approved on December 1st. That does give us, if we needed to push that back a week, that would give us a little bit more time for the vendors, but we've built in some contingency time in this schedule. And again, that frequent interaction and collaboration that we've had with the Office of Attorney General, barring anything totally unforeseen, we don't expect that there would be a major issue identified.
So your task completion date for transmittal to the EOM is November 1st, which is one day after the last day you've given yourselves to get legal sufficiency.
That's correct.
And if you get legal sufficiency, let's say on October 21st, and maybe you would transmit it to EOM on the 22nd?
Most likely the 21st, but yes, the 22nd.
Okay.
It's about a 30-minute process to move it from legal sufficiency to the mayor's office.
And I assume you've talked with EOM. Does that mean OPLA about moving this along there?
Correct. Yeah, we've had conversations with EOM. They're very aware of this. I spoke with the city administrator earlier today about this contract as well.
And the feedback you got in speaking to them was, yes, they would move it along.
Absolutely. They understand it's a high priority.
Still, you're saying 20 days?
Yes.
You can't speak for the EOM, but I'm going to ask anyway, why do they need 3 weeks?
I can't speak for EOM, but just like the Office of Attorney General goes through a process, there's multiple approvers within the mayor's office. They also do their own legal review. Sometimes there are small tweaks in that process as well, that for certain documents or certain language.
EOM is aware of the schedule?
They are aware of the schedule.
And they didn't choke, balk, or otherwise object?
Not that I'm aware of. We have seen, just on that note with EOM, that they turn around packages faster. And again, I'm not going to commit to them, but if we get the package back sooner, then we'll move it sooner to council. These are end dates, but if we work through these steps faster, we'll move it to council faster. and that's our goal.
So when I asked if the EOM has seen this, does that mean the city administrator or OPLA?
The city administrator received a copy earlier today. Thanks. Yes, sure. The city administrator received a copy earlier today, right after you received a copy of it as well.
Okay, and then so the schedule you gave me, EOM approval by November 20th, and I realize there's several approvals there.
Correct.
And then transmittal to the council by November 20th. So that's happens that quickly?
That happened, yeah. So EOM and OPLA are tied together. Typically what we'll see is, so for example, the act of legislation for DC Central Kitchen was approved Tuesday. You guys are receiving that today. So typically we'll see that that moves very quickly.
Okay, and then you would submit it to the council. So your goal is to submit it to the council by November 20th.
Correct.
I may have a couple more questions, but we've been joined by Councilmember Christina Henderson. Let me see if she has any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I've been listening in. I think you've covered the vast majority of the questions that I had in terms of the status of this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm not confident because I haven't looked at this carefully, but I'm not confident that 10 days is December 1st after November 20th, because it might be business days. I can't remember, it's calendar days. Calendar days, all right.
Yeah.
So
So there's
that-
actually, I believe there's 12 or 13. We built in just a small margin of error there. So it gives enough time for passive approval.
Okay. And so after December 1st, the vendors would be notified immediately.
Correct.
And let me check with staff, see if there are any other questions. Give me just a second here. I do not have any other questions for you. I appreciate this communication today. This is very helpful. I probably will informally inquire whether things are moving along according to the schedule. If things slip, then we may all be back here in this room.
Understood.
So thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
That's going to then conclude this hearing. Oh, that's not going to conclude this hearing. We've been joined by Councilmember Bonds.
For phone, but nice to see you.
Nice to see you again as well.
And thank you for coming back and answering some questions. I just have some very basic questions that I think would be helpful to have on the record. One, the value of this contract that you have on the street now. What is the value of that contract?
So obviously we haven't awarded a contract, and we're still evaluating the contract. We expect the value to be around $40 million,
40 million
40 million over the
Mhm.
course of 5 years.
for 5 years? Okay, and it will
That's 40
serve
million
Sorry,
a
excuse
year.
me, 40 million years, yep.
40
For
million.
5 years, yeah,
40 million over 5 years or 40 million per year?
per year.
Okay, and we're doing it in, let's see, 4 times 5, okay, lots of money. And why do we want a contract over this period of time going to one vendor?
So the contract, the solicitation spells out that we intend to make 3 awards. So it won't go to one vendor. And I just want to point out that it's not a multi-year contract, but it's an option year contract, which means that we'll award a base year with 4 option years. And so we can at any point in time opt out and choose to go in a different direction if we needed to.
All right, and within this request for proposals, did we specify any interest in maybe, let's see, I think it's back in the day, it was 35% set aside for minority contractors. But in this instance, did we specify that one of the 3 would go to or be awarded to a minority contractor?
We did not specify in this solicitation that any of the awards would go to, would be set aside.
I see. And how many schools will this serve?
This will serve 10 clusters of schools for about 100 and I believe 110 or so schools.
Okay, I think we have like, what is it,
117
117 schools?
DCPS schools, yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So this is only for DC public schools, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So if it's going to serve 110, what happens to the other schools?
So DCPS has a self-operated program as part of a pilot program. And so those schools are served by that program.
Okay, the pilot program, is that done with our restaurants or is that where the schools prepare the meals?
Those would be schools prepare the meals.
Okay, and in putting this contract on the street for 5 years, was any consideration given to reviewing the merit or lack of merit of those 7 schools that do their independent sort of in-house food preparation?
Councilmember, thank you for the question. Mr. Jaber, who was here with me at the last hearing, is our Director of Food and Nutrition Services. He can better speak to the self-operated program and happy to have him follow up with you about that program specifically. It's not something that I'm prepared to talk about in depth today.
Okay, I would certainly like to know how we're doing with that portion of their money. Again, to me, when I hear $200 million is for food, and it's in our community with our kids, and we haven't really given any, there are no preparations to make sure that our minority food preparation community has an opportunity, does concern me. And secondly, you know, I grew up in a society where we did have the food prepared at the schools. So, and I thought it worked as a student. And so I can imagine that there are parents who are wondering also about how we are preparing the meals, given some of the photographs that they've shown us of the meals where they're not necessarily encouraged that we are serving meals that our young people enjoy. So I wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Bonds. I think that concludes all of the questions for today. And I'm very hopeful. Again, I'm appreciative of the schedule you gave me. And I'm hopeful that things will move not only according to the schedule, but faster
Understood.
than the schedule contemplates. Thank you. With that, I'm going to adjourn this hearing. The time is 3:06 PM and this hearing roundtable is adjourned.
Thank